Dodge this.
One world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of DTRH. It is June 18th, 2015. So, before we get into tonight's broadcast, I would just like to bring something up. I mentioned this to Joe earlier today. Today is actually 8 months since Mrs. Popeye, since Mercy passed away. So I would just like to make a quick note of that. And in honor of the way she lived her life with trying to diffuse a lot of hatred and put love out there, that's hopefully what I'll be able to accomplish with this broadcast tonight in light of what's been going on in the past 24 hours, especially in South Carolina, and more so what's been going on the past months. And I did a show about all the racial division and it being pushed and the reasons why and everything back in January of this year. It was actually January 1st of this year. If you go back into the archives and look it up, go over to PopeyeRadio.com and listen to it. Tonight, I'm going to play some audio that I played that same night. Very fitting. From April 30th of 1978. April 30th of 1978. That long ago. Mae Brussell. I'm going to play it in the second segment where she talks about the King Alfred Plan, what it is. It's a section of the show that she did on it. And when I talk about setting up for race war and the things that they want to do, I constantly refer to the King Alfred Plan and Mae's show on it. Now, supposedly the King Alfred Plan was a fictitious plan written up in a book, and that was published back in the 60s. Now, after the first time I talked about this years ago, I actually was contacted by some of the members of the original Black Panthers, not this new Black Panther Party, but the original Black Panthers. And they confirmed for me what I had thought and what I had talked about on air, and said that, yes, they had actually passed out flyers talking about the King Alfred Plan, trying to wake people up and tell them, don't riot. Don't fall for it. You'll hear her break the plan down, but interestingly enough, and then I'm going to bring my guest on because I have a guest tonight to discuss all this with. The King Alfred Plan, because what it is in this book, it's a plan for pretty much martial law in case of a race riot. And they break the country up into 10 regions. Where have I heard that before? And this was written in the 60s. And May did a show about it in 1978. And we have 10 FEMA regions now, don't we? I've done shows about this before, a couple of them, and I break down the different FEMA regions versus the regions, the 10 quote-unquote regions in the King Alfred Plan. And when you match them up, it's very similar, like eerily so. But I'm sure it's all just coincidence, right? Art imitating life, even though supposedly that didn't exist back then? Think, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes the truth is right in front of your face. Anyway, we're going to be getting into all that tonight. Let me welcome my guest, my good friend. When I say good friend, he really is like my family. My brother, fellow researcher and broadcaster here at TFR, Mr. Joe Joseph of the Freedom Link. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, man. It's great to be here.
So,
8 months.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, very weird. We were discussing that off air.
Yeah.
Very weird. Well, hopefully in the honor of her, how she lived her life, we can put a little knowledge and a little love out and a little bit of wisdom out tonight.
And a little woodshedding, too.
Yeah, she would expect
Definitely, dude. She was Puerto Ricano. I mean, you got to have a little woodshedding in there.
Yes, you knew my wife well. She would expect me to take somebody to the woodshed over this stuff. Well, let's hop right into it. I don't think this whole shooting in South Carolina was, some sort of Illuminati.
It wasn't an operation, no.
No. It's not some Illuminati plan or anything. The guy that did it is obviously off his rocker.
Did you see him?
All you gotta do is look at him, Joe.
I mean, it was Adam Lanza. It was, what's his face? The guy out in Colorado. I can't remember his name, but he had that glazed look in their eyes, dude. All of them just glazed over.
Yeah, I don't think this is an Illuminati plan. I think this is actually real. And they're just going to, just like, what's his name? Rahm Emanuel said, let a good crisis go to waste, Joe.
Let's not, please.
No.
And same for us, too, by the way, because it's all in how we respond to it as well. So let's not let a crisis go to waste here. This is a time when a lot of people should be active, more so than ever before, and stare these people down that are trying to push this agenda and trying to divide us based on racial boundaries when race has nothing to do with it. Because, like I said, unless anybody here's met a reptilian recently, I only know of one race on this planet. Yep.
Well, and they're trying to push the divide. They need that. They need the country to be divided. The only way this country will fall is if it tears itself apart. That's it.
Well, remember the Dr. Seuss thing back in the 60s about the what was it? It was those little they're kind of weird looking creatures, and they had stars on their bellies. And then some had stars, some didn't.
Is that the Who's in Whoville? No.
There's something I can't remember. But anyway.
So wait, some had stars and some didn't?
Some didn't, yeah. And the ones that were stars were the ones that were cool, and the ones that didn't have stars, they weren't. They were like slave class, right?
Where have I seen this meme played out in the opposite? People wearing stars, being labeled with a star? Oh, that's right, 1930s Germany.
Yeah, well,
because labeling people with anything like that,
it's just something you should be proud of and proud to wear.
I'm just using it as an example. Well, that's how they sold it, but I'm just using it as an example. Like, it's like when what's her name, the food chick, what's her name, Padme, whatever the hell, the top chef. When we were talking about vaccines, one night, and she had come out and said that if your kid doesn't have the measles shot, then you should have to have like some sort of armband or wristband. And I was like, yeah, because identifying people that don't do certain things that you want them to do with like an armband or a wristband has worked out so well in the past.
Yeah.
These people like, hello, just because your opinion on something you think is right doesn't A, make it right, and B, who the hell are you to force it on people? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. It's that mentality. So with this shooting, immediately they hop on it. Oh, we need gun control.
Yeah, because that works.
Let's be clear on something. I'm going to be totally clear. And
Let me be clear.
this is the whole shooting thing is very tragic. It's horrible. Okay?
Yeah.
Gun control would not have stopped this. No measure of gun control, background checks, nothing would have stopped this. The father bought the gun as a gift for his son. What are you going to do? Ban giving people guns as gifts? Yes, that'll stop violence, Popeye. No. None of the gun control measures that they want to pass would have stopped this. So tell me how it's okay for them to use this very emotional thing to pontificate, to push a political agenda.
First of all, let me play devil's advocate, okay? So if there were no guns anywhere, right, and we were just all in a gun-free society, why then we would all probably be holding hands right now, singing Kumbaya as unicorns fly overhead and the rainbow goes over in the sky, that perfect blue sky. That's what would happen if all the guns went away, Popeye. Come on.
Yeah, because that's what's happened in other countries that ban guns. Oh, no, just murders with baseball bats and suffocation by plastic bag. I'm not kidding. Went up.
Dude, hammer.
Australia.
Yeah.
Not kidding. The murder by like beating to death with baseball bats and things like that. Suffocation, including plastic bags. Go look this up.
Pretty vicious.
See the statistics. But hey, that's okay.
Where there's a will, there's a way, dude.
Gun violence went down. People, you look. I understand you want to feel safe. I understand the world is crazy, and it's completely out of hand that people can't even go into their little congregation meeting without being gunned down.
Absolutely.
Okay, it is, but it's not the gun's fault.
No,
it's not even. To be honest with you, I wouldn't even as much as people want to blame the psychiatric drugs. That's going right into the hands of the people that want to start using mental health to control everything. So you better watch what you wish for. Okay, that's not even the problem. It's not even the pills. The pills could be part of it, but honestly, it's about how we value human life. And when you teach children from a very young age, because you're subjecting them to very violent movies where people are being shot, stabbed, killed, murdered, you let them play video games where you get special credits and special accolades and badges and stuff because you can sneak up behind your enemy and slit their throat, a la Call of Duty. Okay, yeah, I played the video games myself. I know what they entail, dude. That's desensitizing these children,
dehumanizing.
Yeah. It's making it very easy to kill because in many cases they don't understand.
And why did these games come about?
Military industrial complex.
Well, there's a reason why. Because what happened is they figured out that they were getting cold feet. These, especially during Desert Storm. In Desert Storm, you had a bunch of people that got cold feet. They wouldn't pull the trigger. So they had to figure out a way to do that, a la first-person shooter games, like your Dooms and your Duke Nukems and all that stuff first, right? That came out. Well, DARPA was the ones that originally developed it, and what they found is if people played these before they went into theater, they did not hesitate. The hesitation went right away. Just gone.
Same reason they changed the targets from round targets,
silhouettes
after World War II, because they realized like out of every 10 Marines, I think it was something like 6 were actually shooting above or to the side of their target because they weren't used to shooting at a human silhouette, and they realized their brain was saying, wow, that's another person. So in order to overcome that, they changed the targets from round to silhouette shaped.
I mean, think about this, dude, because I was I'm an old timer. So in 96, we were off the coast of Bosnia and doing all that, the Bosnian conflict. You're talking about going up and having to kill your own fellow man. It's bad. It's hard. But I can totally see how these first-person shooter games and everything else promote that, dude, and totally desensitize.
It's another one.
You hear it all. You hear it all the time. These what especially kids these days, what they talk about. I mean,
Grand Theft Auto games, Joe, like things like that.
Yeah.
And there's another game, Prometheus, in the chat room. Kudos to you. Brought up a very good a point about another game that came out probably, I think it was around 2003, 2004. It's called Manhunt. And the game
Get out.
You were running around.
Never heard.
Okay, well, the premise of the game, I remember it. You were running around in this city. It was like this abandoned city that had been turned into this like sick, twisted live action survival game. And the guy was supposedly executed or whatever, but instead of being executed, I think they faked his death or whatever the hell it was, and something along those lines. And he ended up in this city. And there's cameras all over with microphones, and you have to fight all these different criminals and gangs, and some of them are just insane. I remember there was one gang that ran around dressed up in like overalls, looking like rednecks on steroids, basically wearing hockey masks with smiley faces painted on them. And part of like you had to kill with whatever you get your hands on, including a crowbar and a plastic bag. You had to suffocate. I remember playing the game. You had to suffocate somebody with a plastic bag, and you had to like the way they had it was
Get out of here, dude. Seriously?
Yeah, and you had to press the buttons and everything else. And the way you did it, the controller would be vibrating. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to be honest with you. I played the game. Okay, I rented it from Blockbuster. I played it for about 2 hours. I brought it back. The guy was like, "Wow, you didn't like the game?" I said, "No, it's not that I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel because I was connecting to the game too much." And I started to feel it amping up my adrenaline levels as I was doing these deeds in the game. And I was like, whoa. And it bothered me because I could see the connection. And that was about the time that I started to stop playing. I started my exit from playing video games because I've been a video game tard since I was a kid. I had Pong. People are like, what? Yeah. Electronic table.
Come on, man. Do you remember the old arcades when you'd go in like pole position was the bomb, you're like, that kind of stuff. I know the Pong thing. And I remember there was also a game where it was like one of the first light rifle games where you'd shoot like skeets on the wall. I mean, those were the days. But then Castle Wolfenstein came around for me and it was all over.
But those games were different, and that desensitizes you to a different level,
sure,
lighter level.
But you always get amped up. You're right. I know what you mean when you say that.
My adrenaline started to go, and I was like, I don't like that. Like, I didn't like that connection. That kind of bugged me out, dude. So, yeah. I was like,
and same with great example, Grand Theft Auto. I mean, you want to talk about really lowering the standards, if you will. I mean, that's it.
Well, but in that game, what do? You run around shooting cops. You run around shooting hookers, beating people up, stealing their cars.
Yeah.
That's you don't think that just allowing the child to be programmed with that. And I'm not saying that like you can't play the video games with your kid. Maybe you should sit and play them with them and explain to them that's just a video game a little bit. I honestly wouldn't. If I had kids, I wouldn't let them play video games. I know that sounds tyrannical and like old fogey-ish, but I wouldn't because.
Well, I don't like. I got kids, right? My kids play video games, but they play them like, for example, they like the hidden object games, and they like some of the more children-oriented. Like they've got a turtle game that basically, like, you remember Sonic the Hedgehog? It's basically like Sonic the Hedgehog with a turtle. That kind of thing. Those kind of games were great. I see like some in the chat room, Donkey Kong, Frogger. Dude, I hated Frogger. That game pissed me off so bad. And Cubert. Oh, I could. But my all-time favorite, since we're talking about old school, Dig Dug.
Yeah,
just had to do it.
But those were different. Like those were games to a certain degree when we were kids. Even had a thinking component to them. Now it's just kill, death, maim.
Right.
I mean, how many drone pilots were trained by playing video games and episodes of Call of Duty where you could fly around in a drone or fly around as the C-130 Spectre gunship bombing the Taliban, quote unquote, I think in Afghanistan or wherever the hell you're supposedly fighting.
Right. Basically propaganda for whatever's going on at the time too, by the way. You want to see how they merge video games and TV shows to blur the lines of reality even further. In the newest Call of Duty video game, do you know who the president is? Hillary.
No.
Who is it?
Blurring the lines even further. You know that the show House of Cards on Netflix?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Kevin Spacey's character.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's, you know how he's the president in that show?
Okay.
I think like the second season he becomes the president.
Right.
Well, he's the president in the video game as well.
Oh.
And he's that character.
Oh.
So do you see that? You see how they merge TV?
Yep. Merge TV in the game.
Right. So you're creating this false reality for people, and then sometimes you will get some mentally unstable individual who along with the psychiatric drugs and whatever racial garbage has been programmed into his head. We're all biological computers, ladies and gentlemen, and racism we're not born with it. That's not natural. That's a programmed idiot.
Exactly, dude. You put two babies next to each other, even toddlers, and they don't see color difference. That's a learned response.
My beautiful wife, Marcy, and I were together 9 years. She's 100% Puerto Rican. Do you think I cared that she was from Puerto Rico? From the island. Born and raised. Do you think I was like, oh, she's Puerto Rican, I can only treat her a certain way? No. I didn't care. She was Marcy. That's all. I mean, I didn't look at her like she celebrated her heritage and she was proud of it. You know, we cooked Spanish food and things like that, but it's just different. And there's nothing wrong with celebrating heritage or culture.
No, not at all.
But we're all one race. We all have the same hearts, the same lungs. We all bleed the same blood.
Damn right. But let me say this. Sometimes level of intelligence,
No, I agree. But then that's why people, they do is they get people to act on emotion. This is all, look, if you look at what they're doing, their arguments are all logical fallacies. Again, if their argument is all
what was that?
Emotion, yes.
What did you just say?
Need to ring the bell.
Oh, wait. Did you say
logical fallacy? Yes, I said it. It's a drinking game, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody, it's an old school thing. Anybody that listens to TFR for a while knows that when I say the term logical fallacies, you're all supposed to do a shot. So, yeah, I said it enough over the course of time that you'd probably get drunk in a very short period of time on one of my shows listening to it if we actually did that. And the reason why is because, unfortunately, they're used left and right. And in this case, that's what you see going on with the shooting in South Carolina. And it's, again, a very tragic, horrible situation. I think it's actually abhorrent that people immediately jump on it like, we need gun control. Like, wow. How about you let the families put their loved ones to rest, dirtbags? How about that? But see, they don't want to do that. They have to appeal to emotion, Joe. That's the logical fallacy that's at play. So what they do is they see people are emotional, rightfully so. They're upset about this. This is horrible. And they go in for the kill, for whatever they need right now. They steal that emotional energy to drive their agenda. It's disgusting. It's absolutely abhorrent. So they don't need to stage an event like this all the time.
No. As
Rahm Emanuel said, and I said earlier when I quoted him, never let a good crisis go to waste.
That's it. It's all in how you frame it, and they've got the mainstream media on their side. Even if you go down the road of the SSRIs, right? Even if you go down that
They're
road.
partially responsible. I would say the side effects of them could partially.
Absolutely. But like you said, you made a great point. Be careful what you wish for, because if they start demonizing those things, that's a big list of people. That's a big list
of America, Joe.
Yeah, that's a big list of people.
33% of the country.
Yeah. So be careful what you wish for there. And I understand. It's a double-edged sword. But yeah, is it a contributing factor? I think so. But I think there's some underlying psychosis, regardless of the medication.
Oh, dude, look at him.
That's what I mean, dude. I think the medication was probably taking the edge off a little bit. He probably would have killed a lot more people had he not been.
Well,
there
are cases where the medication does work. I don't think everybody and their mother should be on it the way it's proliferated, but
it's way overprescribed.
And all of that stuff, a lot of it, they don't really know what it is and all the side effects and things. So I've taken the big pharma industry to the woodshed repeatedly. I don't even have to smack those people around anymore, although I will gladly. But the point is, I don't need to focus on that tonight because
here, let me do, can I do it for you? Come here, big pharma. Thank you. Okay.
Well, no, they are to blame to a large extent. I'm not saying that they don't have any responsibility. I do find it interesting how that's never brought up by the mainstream. They'll blame guns. They'll blame quote unquote right wingers. They'll blame conspiracy theorists, the internet, oxygen, the ether, but they won't ever talk at all.
Okay, so this according to Paul Joseph Watson over at InfoWars. He says pharmaceutical giants who produce drugs like Zoloft, Prozac, and Paxil spend around $2.4 billion a year on direct-to-consumer television advertising. Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, and who are the biggest advertisers that you normally see during the commercials? The break?
Talk to your doctor about, about your restless leg syndrome, but be careful because side effects are promiscuous sex and tendency to want to gamble a lot.
Dude, think about it. They amp you up on fear during the news. The news. I'm doing air quotes when I say it. I'm using that term very loosely. Okay, the news. And they amp you up on the fear vibe, and then you go to commercial, and they're like, does your leg hurt? And you're like, well, yeah, actually, my leg's kind of bothering me today. Oh, my God, if your leg hurts and you've had a headache in the past 10 years, you could have whatever disease we think that you should have at this moment in time, so we could sell you another useless drug. Go see your doctor and get, insert drug name here. Side effects include heart stoppage, stopping of breathing, anal leakage, sudden death, time travel, promiscuous sex, gambling, thinking you're Captain America. I mean, the list goes on and on. Anyway, break sneaking up, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. We're going to get into more of this on the other side. Don't go anywhere. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to play that May Brussel clip at the beginning of the second hour. When we come back in from break in the second hour, I'm going to give it a quick 10-second, 15-second intro and then get right to it because it's going to take up the whole first segment, and I want to give it the proper intro. We were pointing out some important stuff with in relation to not only the shooting but desensitizing children and people as a whole, and we were discussing what race really is, right? And racism being programmed into our brains. And I want to continue with that, and it wouldn't have been a proper intro for that clip just to cut it off, right? The conversation right off there and then start it. So I'll play it at the beginning of the second hour. But Joe, I want to stay where we are for a second because I want to get into the ugly, muddy waters of racism since it seems to be a very prominent thing thrown out there as of late.
It's really BS, man. That's a problem, is it?
Well, yeah, racism. Just call it what it is. Racism is bullshit.
It is, man.
It's stupid thinking. It's stupid thinking, and it's not. So people understand because they've been told by it's base
level thinking is what it is,
Well, yeah, but they've also been told by the mainstream media that it's white people not liking black people or other people of any other ethnicity. That's not true. The definition of racism is believing any one race is better than any other race. Any of them. It doesn't matter. Okay? So it's not just racist white people. But that's a meme that gets played on. And yes, there are racist white morons, without a shadow of a doubt. There's also racist morons of every color, creed, and nationality on this planet.
But it's still not even an accurate description because it should be anti-cultural, if anything. That
should be ignorant. That's
ignorant. Yeah, well, that is.
Passively ignorant is what it should be.
Yeah, but if anything, it's not liking a culture personally because what is it? There's one race. That's the big confusion here. It all starts there. What the hell are we fighting over skin color for? We all have the same anatomy. We got the same brain. Everything's the same.
Like Kennedy said to Khrushchev, and about the Russians when he was trying to, working on the deal to, not kill each other back in the 60s and not pretty much, cause World War III and the possible ending of humanity. He said, look, we all have the same, just because you're Russian and, we're American, we all have the, and I'm paraphrasing his speech here, but basically he was also speaking to the people of America too.
He also had a Boston accent too, by the way.
Yeah, I know. And he parked the car in the Harvard yard. But he was trying to explain that, look, we're all human. It doesn't matter just because they're Russian. Right. Ooh, their babies are different. No, they want to watch their kids grow up to be healthy, strong adults.
They want to be left alone just like you do.
Yeah. I mean, dude, we have more in common with each other than we don't.
Right?
Right? Who keeps pushing this divide? The media, and they're the lapdogs of who?
The powers that shouldn't be.
Bingo. So if you have the powers that shouldn't be and their lapdog media pushing this meme, why are we allowing this to be our reality?
That's a very good question.
We're the ones being programmed with it, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that are making it the reality. And that's because it's appeal to emotion. That's what you see them taking advantage of this very horrific situation now. And unfortunately, this yutz that did this guy, he appealed to that other end of it, that racist end, and who knows who gave him those ideas, where he learned it from. The point is, that's not natural. You're not born like that.
Right.
That's a
but
learned
now,
behavior.
Let me give you an example. Okay, so Popeye just called him a yutz, right? So I could just go to him and say, "Oh, I see your Hebrew colors are shining through today." You know, okay, that's anti-cultural type of. See, but then you get the whole act. Well, we're both active duty and all this kind of stuff. And if I'm not making fun of you, then I don't love you. It's basically like that, you know. But what do people do? Oh my God, he just made fun of his heritage. Oh, he must be anti-Semitic. He must be racist. He must be that. No. How about him just human? You know?
Yeah, but
Well, how about whatever happened to sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
we can joke about our differences as long as we respect each other's differences. The problem is when you take it to the next level because you think your differences make you better than someone else.
Exactly. And I got to admit, there are a lot of people out there that do feel that way and are ego driven and are ambitious like that, you know, and I'm just not. And maybe that's because you know, like everybody that's here at TFR, for example, I can tell you that we all have humble hearts, and it's very important that you do so, because when you do, you see things through very different lenses. You know, reality is very different, but not everybody does. You know, and you see it's very prevalent now, especially if you have a job at, say, an office. What do you have in that culture? You know, it's a lot of backstabbing. It's a lot of frickin' competition. It's a lot of he said, she said, rumor this, rumor that. You know, that whole atmosphere is cultivated at every point in your life. It's like that's where it is. It's always there. And the only way you can really solve this issue, you say it all the time, remove yourself. Just step away and see, because that's the only way. If you try to change the system, you're just going to keep fighting and fighting and fighting, and you're shoveling shit uphill. But if you step away and you don't participate, then they don't have any control. That control's gone. And you see things for what it is. Too many people are just caught up in the rat race of reality, of this manufactured reality.
They push race as a way to divide us. That way,
yeah,
you see their goal. Let's look at a short-term goal. This isn't the end-all, be-all of why they do everything, but we'll use this as an example.
Sure.
They want to federalize the police force in the country. So
yes, Hegelian dialectic, and boy, is it ever employed. I mean, and this is one of the best ways to do it, Popeye.
Right, and I've said this before. I called this 6 months ago, Joe. People can go back and listen to the episode. It was January 1st of this year, January 1st of 2015. Okay, it's in the archives over at Truth Frequency or over at Popeye.
Do you love yourself that much that you know what you said on every freaking day? I need to know.
No, this show.
That is amazing. I just wanted to say that is talent right there.
This show, there's certain shows I remember the dates, and this show was so on point, and like it's very poignant because
yeah, it's one of those where you feel it. You know, you just know you nailed it. Yeah.
Well, I called it 6 months ago. I was like, they're going to do this. Watch. And 6 months later down the line, it's exactly like I said.
Are you like the second coming of Jimmy the Greek?
No, it's easy to see. And the only reason why I pointed out is I want people to go listen to that show because I went further into detail on a lot of stuff.
PopeyeRadio.com.
Exactly. And if you listen to it, you'll see it's just a huge game of chess. They want, not only do they need the police against the citizens, but you also need black against white, Latino versus black, Asian versus white, Latino and black. They need everybody separated because this country is a huge melting pot of different cultures, and they need everybody at each other's throats. The only way this country will fall is if we tear it apart ourselves.
From the inside.
Exactly. And then asked to be saved by the very people that created the effing chaos to begin with, ladies.
I think James Madison warned us of that. I'm gonna look for that quote, but I think he warned us that the enemy was going to be from within.
I actually remember there being a quote from either him or Jefferson. One of them.
They knew it. They knew that's the way this was going to go down over 200 years ago.
Well, because they were smart. They understood how it worked. It's very simple.
Yeah.
It's a very simple premise. And that's what's being done. People are being played against one another. I mean, it's retarded. Who cares? I'm covered in tattoos. Who am I to judge anybody by the color of their skin? I have drawings all over me. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be discriminated against. I actually know because I experience it myself. Now, not to the level of what somebody who's black or perhaps, depending on where you live, Latino. Because you perhaps, if you might live in an area where you might be looked at, and I understand all that, and I'm sure, without a shadow of a doubt, those cultures have been through way more discrimination than I could ever even imagine. But to a certain level, I understand it because I go into places, and if I'm like when I lived in South Florida in Miami, it was different. I lived in South Beach. It's very forward thinking. It's very open. People really. I used to call the place the island of misfit toys. Nobody really cares if you're covered in tattoos. Where I live now is kind of rural. When I go into the store with a sleeveless shirt on, you can hear sometimes people go, and you can see people looking at me like I'm going to rob the place or whatever. So I understand that to a certain level. All that is them misunderstanding me and judging me based on the visual because of what I have drawn on me, which is retarded because all my body is a vessel for me to experience this physical reality here.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
It is basically a flesh prison.
Right, but it's
That's what it is.
Don't even look at it like a prison. Look at it like it's your car.
Well, yeah, you're driving it.
Yeah, but do you put your own bumper stickers on your car? Do you do what you want on your car? Do you pick the color of your vehicle? Do you get a chance to be like, well, I want to drive a black car?
What are you, transracial now?
Well, you know what I mean. Don't even get me started on that crap.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go there and derail you.
Well, by the way, because of this shooting and because of that crap with the NAACP thing.
I know. What did we get today?
Oh yeah, the Senate passed the fast track authority for the House passed the fast track authority for TPP.
Yummy.
And now there's one more vote going back to the Senate, and then if they pass it, it goes to the president to get signed. So thank you for selling us out to multinational corporations, you scumbags in Congress. But everybody, get emotional, pay attention to only this, although it's a big tragedy. Pay attention to only this, and we'll get you all caught up in this and the gun control debate. And don't pay attention that they just gave the president authority to not only fast track this, but other treaties for the next 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah. So, by the way, that tells you why the GOP wants to push it.
Yep.
But I thought Hillary's going to be the president. No.
Actually, she probably will be, dude. The way things are going. Now, look at this is a very.
Never know.
I want to throw this in here because this is very interesting. We're actually seeing 1992 kind of come back into play again. Ross Perot. Remember Ross Perot? The charts? Remember him? Hey, man, look at this chart over here. Right? Well, now we got the Donald. Only the Donald has many more and vast resources than even Ross Perot had back in 92.
But Ross Perot also had a little tact.
Yeah, but Donald doesn't need tact because everybody's so... Hollywood has so much more allure these days and so much more control over...
dick, though.
I know he is. I know, but he's still got think about these extreme, Republican hoorah, siscoom ba people. They like that corporate. But I'm gonna make this country profitable and
you see how they're realigning everything.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, the cops are good guys, right? The cops are aligning themselves with the conservatives.
Yeah,
splitting the country along party lines, along race lines. And they're getting all of this to connect to their political views. They're getting
and pouring gasoline over everything too. By the way,
they break it down to two very easy things: A or B. I always say this: they give you this illusion of
choice.
you have to choose either A or B. That's the only options you have, Joe. So either you're conservative and you're a racist and you want to kill black people, and that's retarded because that's not true. But that's the way they narrow everything down. Or they'll liberal whatever, and then you hate everyone and you want to take people's guns and you hate freedom and blah blah blah. And they'll narrow it all down, and you have to pick a side. And then they put out their meme, their moron, who's already been selected. And the way it usually works, I mean, look, anything's possible now, but the way it usually works is they give you a Democrat for 8 years and then a Republican, then a Democrat and a Republican. And they do that because they let right now people are so pissed off at Obama and the Democrats, right? There's enough, fervor that if there really was somebody that if the GOP actually wanted to throw him out or do something and exert any power, and they actually wanted to stand by the Constitution and do the right thing, they could. There's enough backing. So what they do is they get it's like a steam pressure valve, Joe. Or like the pressure relief valve on an air brake system. When a truck is sitting there idling and you hear, at a light and you hear underneath the truck, it's a pressure relief valve. As the air pressure builds up, you only want it to get to a certain level, and then the pressure relief valve is made to blow off some steam.
And also,
that's what
also relieve the moisture.
Exactly. Yes, take the moisture and the oil buildup at the bottom of the canister out.
Yeah.
So, by having that pressure relief valve, it allows that brake system to continue to operate.
Like a Ronald Reagan.
But that's the exact...
Remember?
That's that these people work. The system itself continues to operate because they just bring in a different pressure relief valve.
Exactly. I mean, look back, because this is a great... You've made such a good example. Back in the 70s, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, like a year before, in public polling, he pulled like 4% out of all the Democratic candidates. And then all of a sudden, there was this insane media blitz because the elite, like David Rockefeller and the trilaterals and all that, they had their man, and it was Jimmy Carter. So it was a big new Brzezinski, of course, was his handler. Hence, he was the chief of staff or national security advisor. And boy, did they screw some crap up on purpose, of course, but they did it. And then, of course, you need that pressure relief valve. Here comes Ronnie, who can just make you feel so comfortable at home. Yeah, well, I love those jelly beans.
Even though they called him Red Ronnie behind the scenes. Because Ronnie was a commie, amongst other things that he was into, but we won't even go there. But yes.
But you understand what I'm saying.
No, he was a total pressure relief.
Yeah, and then you had Bush and Clinton and Bush. Where's the pressure relief valve, dude? Where is it?
Well,
we need one.
Well, see, that's what it is. They're the relief valve because you get these. Like, look what happened when Obama came in. Everybody was pissed off about
everybody said it couldn't be much. How can it be worse than Bush?
Well, half of 9/11.
Oh God.
Half of the End the Fed movement. Half of all these people. Which the End the Fed movement is what spurred the original Tea Party, and the original Tea Party was just people like throwing copies of the. Remember, they threw a huge an effigy of the 9/11 Commission report into Boston Harbor.
Yeah. And the Million Man March on Washington in 07.
Yeah, like there was actual all that stuff came from the End the Fed movement, which came about from We Are Change, 9/11 Truth,
right? Even the Ron Paul revolution.
All of that kind of came together, and then that kind of merged into the End the Fed, and then the Tea Party, and then that got hijacked by the mainstream, and then. Sarah Palin. Palin represent? No, she doesn't.
Freedom Works.
They're all scumbags. They're all connected to these same.
Grover Norquist. Come on.
Mm-hmm. And it's a pressure relief valve, and it's done so that way it gets all these different strings tied up into nice little knots, and then they're controlled because now they're all tied together and they're more easily controlled. And then they get people to believe their party line or whatever, and then they'll put somebody like a Marco Rubio in and go, look, he's a Tea Party candidate. It's Marco Rubio, the Tea Party candidate. Even though Rubio keeps spouting, we need a new American century.
Oh, I know, man. I know.
And he goes, sacrifices need to be made for a new American century. The last time I heard something with the new American century in it, it was the Project for a New American Century. They wrote a white paper called Rebuilding America's Defenses about a year before 9/11. I think
it was Prince's 1999, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That they did that it came out.
It was like 1999, beginning of 2000 when the white paper came out, and they about 3/4 of this group, the Project for a New American Century,
The who's who of neocons.
yes, the like the neocon think tank extraordinaire.
Yeah.
About 3/4 of them ended up in the White House. I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio as a ticket together. You know why I say that? Because Jeb Bush was one of the members of PNAC.
Yep.
And Marco Rubio's running around saying we need a new American century.
It's
Their white paper rebuilding America's defenses, Joe, and I'm getting a bit sidetracked, but it called for this new America where we invade 7 different countries over the course
been
of
there,
5
done
years.
that.
Yeah. And they said, look, we're not going to be able to transform the military or our political structure. And they also knew that they had to transform the political structure here at home, too, and our own, the way we do things at home, not just foreign policy, but domestic as well. And they said that they wouldn't be able to do it. It would be a slow process, unless, of course, we had some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. And then a year later, 3/4 of these people are in the Bush administration, and 9/11 happens. And George Bush referenced 9/11 as this generation's Pearl Harbor
Get out.
that night
You don't say.
in his memoirs, or
My.
how you want to call it. So, yeah.
What a coinky dink.
Yeah. So there you have it. I'm just saying. Anyway, look, ladies and gentlemen, we have to realize what's going on. Okay, we have to understand that they need us divided. They need us arguing. I know Joe and I got a bit sidetracked there for a second, but to get back on point, we need to realize that they need us divided, because if we're divided and fighting amongst each other, we're not paying attention to what they're doing. We're not.
But it's managed. You have to understand that this is a managed thing, because not only do you have this strife, this chaos, this static that's here in the United States, but it's everywhere. And then it's also on a macro scale with like America, Russia, America, China. Well, America, everybody. But I mean, America, you know what I'm saying? So you have it on a micro level within the countries, but then you also have it on a macro level from country to country. So, I mean, they're just fomenting chaos everywhere. And then you have the economy. Well, let's get the economy going too. Now you got Greece that's defaulting. You've got a stock market that's in a huge bubble, very overvalued. So you've got that chaos there too. They have just fomented chaos everywhere. And what's their slogan, dude? Out of chaos?
Order. Well, their order anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's chaos that they create, and because they already know,
Yeah.
they have the agenda. They already have what the end that they want to get to. And in their mind, remember, Joe, the end justifies the means. So they don't care what they do. That's why they don't care if they kill 4,000 people.
Right.
By bringing buildings down in the middle of a populated city.
Dude, it's pawns on a chessboard. That's all it is.
They don't care.
They don't give a crap.
Collateral damage
hence
to them.
First-person shooter games. It might as well be a first-person shooter game to them. Only instead of it being a video game, it's much more, because it's human life. But what's that to them? They don't care.
Well, and look, these people are eugenicists, okay? They don't care. They're the ones that push race. They're the ones that push this idea. The idea of racism doesn't stem from, I mean, yeah, there might be tribes and stuff that might not like people from the other tribe, but and maybe if they haven't seen a white person or an Asian person and they're out in the middle of the desert or the middle of the jungle somewhere in the Amazon and they've never seen anybody or whatever before, maybe they might be weirded out by them, but that's not racism.
No.
Okay, that's different. Racism is a taught behavior, and that was taught to us by the powers that shouldn't be thousands of years ago and passed on through generations. And now we just self-teach our own children and the future generations. You should hate this person because they're Asian, or they're Pakistani, or they're black, or they're white, or they're Puerto Rican, or they're any type of Latino, or whatever. Look, we're all humans, ladies and gentlemen.
And we are very prejudicial. Even if you think you're not, you are. I promise you.
Of course.
You do a little self-reflection, you find it everywhere. I mean,
don't be afraid to look at yourself and
no, you have to.
Dark stuff. Look at all the stuff you don't like about yourself, and then just ask yourself, why do you continue to? Don't hide from it. Don't put it away because that's not dealing with it. Deal with the stuff you don't like about yourself. If you have maybe a racist thought or something stupid, try to squash that. And I'm not saying, live in peace, kumbaya, and harmony, but come on, let's realize that we're all the same race. We're humans. I mean, this is absolutely retarded. Racism is bullshit. I'll repeat it again. Racism in any form, in any shape, is absolute bullshit.
We're all a product of our life experience too, and that's another thing that you have to understand is everybody's journey is different, and not just spiritual, but life itself. It's different, and you don't know what that person that you've got that feeling towards, that ill feeling. We all have it, what they've been through. So that's why, and I try like hell not to be prejudicial, and that's what it is. But God, I mean, we judge everything. We are very judgmental. It's been, like you say, programmed into us from a very, very early time.
But if
in
it's
human history
behavior, and these people study how humans work, they have 50, 60 years of it at least, if not more. Okay, they understand how humans work at a very easy, basic level, so they know how to manipulate people, and we're being manipulated. This is all a huge picture that you're taking part in a huge live action play, so that way they can consolidate their power, and they're going to use every means necessary. And when they're done with you, when they're done using you, you'll be thrown into the wood chipper just like anybody else.
Al Sharpton, great example. I mean, think about it. Here he is. He's like one of the best lackeys out there, foments a bunch of hatred, all that kind of stuff. Okay, let's just say, hypothetically, society goes to hell in a handbasket. It becomes third world. It becomes like the road, right? And they have their little, underground complexes and their fortresses. They're going to be shutting the door in Mr. Sharpton's face, because guess what? Mr. Sharpton, you have absolutely no value to them. You've just become a useless eater. So, see you later.
Yeah, that's all he is. He's just, look, let's get something straight, and because this is a good segue to the Mae Brussel clip I'm going to play next segment.
Awesome.
Where she talks about the King Alfred Plan. You'll hear her mention fake leaders in the black community, like Jesse Jackson. Well, those people and others are connected to the modern day people like Al Sharpton. Okay, they're all controlled. Why do you think he comes out? I mean, look, there are families when legitimately like a black kid is killed by the cops and it's totally out of control. They shouldn't have killed them. And there are families that are like, get out of here, like stay away. But you don't really hear about that on the news. The only media, whether it's bad or good, the only attention Al gets is when he's running around opening his mouth. They really don't give too much media attention when the family says, stay away, you shit-stirring scumbag. Don't use my child's death as a way to push hatred. They don't air that too much, do they, ladies and gentlemen? Because that family is living in love. Okay, to quote, before we go to break, to quote the brother of the Coastie that was killed by the other retired Coastie, when he was running from a traffic stop like a month or two back, he said it's not about race. It's about a value of human life thing. It's not a race thing. It's a value of human life thing. And I couldn't agree with that gentleman more.
Yep.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. On the other side, Mae Brussel from 1978. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from federaljack.com. PopeyeRadio.com, and of course my archives over on YouTube, DTRH Radio Archives. That's DTRH Radio Archives. Delta Tango Romeo Hotel. Obviously, it is short for Down the Rabbit Hole. Radio Archives over on YouTube. Anyway, back with hour number 2. I'll be short with this because I want to get right into the audio. April 30th, 1978, Mae Brussel on the King Alfred Plan. And you'll hear her describe it. I'll let Mae pontificate for the whole segment here. And then when we come back from break on the other side, Joe and I will give our thoughts on this and on a few other things involving the tragic situation in South Carolina. But I want to play this because this is key for the race baiting and the racism that they're pushing for a race war to divide this country and to divide us as humans. Okay. Mae is going to call out a lot of these fake leaders. So just take a listen. Here we go. April 30th, 1978, Mae Brussel on the King Alfred Plan.
This week on Dialogue Conspiracy, I want to mention again the institution called the Arley Foundation, and then I want to read you some of the King Alfred Plan because I'm afraid the Arley Foundation could be a conduit of what is the King Alfred Plan. I define the King Alfred Plan as a plan by the National Security Agency to eliminate all blacks in the United States of America and I ask you to listen to what is written on documents that were allegedly taken from the National Security Agency and see if you think they can happen in the United States. In the meantime, as I mentioned before, there are articles from February and March in Washington Post on the Arley Foundation. They describe themselves as a foundation for teaching and training films, teaching population control to disseminate abroad and at home. They pushed for money. Mr. Passman linked to the Korean CIA and Reverend Moon and Nazi money that has been being tied up to Moon and Passman and the Korean CIA goes back to the head of the Arley Foundation, also identified as CIA, Dr. Murdoch, head from George Washington University. Now, Passman asked for money for the population work by Arley House. They got a $5 million grant that I mentioned before, and they said it has to be used, in quotes, for secret reasons outside of official channels. The proposal for the International Center for Population Dynamics is in Washington, D.C., and by February 1973, they had accumulated $15 million for their population budget. Without many of the directors' knowledge, they pushed some of this money to the Bahamas, which is now linked in the Bahamas. Dr. Jose Delgado, the man who was working on the electrode implants for Navy intelligence and for the United States government, also had hospitals and funding in the Bahamas that were trying to make some of the connections to identify these locations. But this large bulk of money, so far admitted of $15 million, goes into a population control bureau, which reminds me to bring up just at this time the possibility of the genocide program. When the book came out, The Man Who Cried I Am, in 1967, it's by John Williams. A lot of people, book reviewers, he thought at that time that it was possible that this book was true. I'm sorry, it was 1969. There's one book review that was in the Washington Post, and it says this about the King Alfred Plan and the book, The Man Who Cried I Am. These are quotes from a book review of that book. Hitler had a final solution for the Jews, and 6 million of them were murdered. America's final solution for the black man is the premise about which this book is written. You look at men who've been running the world for the last quarter of a century, and you find the book is not a novel, but a statement of cold, hard fact, eminently plausible, but more than likely true. The plot of the final solution is a horrible one, dreamed up and nurtured by men in Washington, eagerly followed by power holders in Europe, so that the century-long fiesta of extorting from people, grinding down humanity for profit, can keep on going in a business-as-usual world. We lie, we cheat, we murder, we overthrow governments, not to our liking. And with this kind of action going on abroad, what the hell are a few million spades or two at home? A murderer is one who murders. A murderer does not kill innocent people in some other land and then undergo a miraculous transformation at home, coming home to apple pie or mother. This is a book review saying there are murderers sitting high in seats of government. They are bland, napalm-making baby killers sitting around the councils of the tables of our largest corporations. They are the worst killers of all. They kill not in anger, not even for revenge. Their murders are wholesale and coldly planned, carried out for profit, and they will kill anyone and anything that gets in the way. The two irreconcilable enemies are described in this book by Mr. John Williams as the blacks and whites, a tune of hate and prejudice orchestrated for profit, depending upon hate and prejudice. Each side is the unwitting patsy for the struggle of our time. Malcolm X was one of those who knew this about the King Alfred Plan, and he was murdered. And Uncle Tom agents for the CIA or FBI, they all smell the same, are knitted together by their white cohorts until the final solution becomes evident to them. Now, this is the King Alfred Plan, the sheet that is reprinted in the book, The Man Who Cried I Am, but I have a copy of it that was not photocopied from the book that came from a person who has been doing a lot of investigative work and said it came and did come from the National Security Council. King Alfred, in the event of a widespread and continuing coordinated racial disturbance in the United States, The King Alfred will be directed by the President of the United States to be put into action immediately. And remember Jimmy Carter's racial purity statements as a front and a possibility. This goes on. The agencies that will participate are the National Security Council, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Interior. The participating agencies will be the National Guard and the State Police. The participating local agencies will be the City Police and the County Police. The memo from the National Security Council says even before 1954, when the Supreme Court of America declared it to be unconstitutional to separate educational and recreational facilities, there was racial unrest and discord that became a part of the American way of life. That way of life was repugnant to most Americans. Since 1954, however, that unrest and discord have broken into widespread violence. The peace and stability of the nation are in dire jeopardy. The violence result in loss of life, limb, and property. It is costing the taxpayers billions of dollars, and the end is not in sight. This violence has raised tremendously grave questions as to whether the races can live in peace with each other. Each passing month brings new intelligence that, in spite of new laws passed to alleviate the condition, the minority is still not satisfied. Demonstrations and rioting are part of the familiar scene. Troops have been called out in every city. Our image as a world leader is severely damaged. Our enemies press closer, possibly at a time during one of these outbreaks. The minority, meaning the blacks, have adopted an almost military posture to gain their objectives, which is not clear to most Americans. Therefore, when their objectives are denied, the minority, racial war must be considered inevitable. And when the emergency comes, we have to have total involvement of all 22 million members of the minority, men, women, and children, for this project. And it will be launched, and its goal is to terminate once and for all the minority threat to the whole of American society and the free world, typed out Chairman of the National Security Council. The end, typed by the Secretary of Defense, says that the survey shows that during a 6-year period, the production, as being birth rate, created 9 million objects. Those are black children, or 1,500,000 each year. Production could not dispose of the containers. The parents, in other words, do not get rid of the children. Therefore, we have a bottleneck. However, that was almost 20 years ago. We suggest the vaporization technique be employed to overcome the production problems inherent in King Alfred. Now, one of the things that the King Alfred Plan said when it came out in 1969 was that these people were an embarrassment to foreign policy. If you remember the memos of the FBI against Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, it was that they are embarrassing us overseas by exposing American racism. If you think that from 10 to 40% of all blacks up to age 25 are unemployed, or a newspaper account this week that after 10 years of housing and consideration of minority housing, it is difficult for blacks to get homes or apartments. The statistics were in the paper this week, so that there's no provision for housing for blacks. There's no provision for jobs, and there is a lot of provision to turn them into dope addicts and drug addicts and get police on the streets, so that it makes a situation ripe for violence where you eliminate the leaders. You have no housing. You have no employment. They're forced to break stores and riot on the streets, and then the King Alfred Plan becomes the solution. Now, for the King Alfred Plan, the United States is broken into a map of 10 areas. The capital region, which is Washington. 2 is the Northeast region, the northern states. 3 is the Southwest region, the South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida. 4th is the Great Lakes region. 5 is the South Central region, Ohio and Illinois in that area. 7 is the Deep South region. 8 is the Great Plains and Rocky Mountains. 9 is the Southwest region, New Mexico, and down in the Southern California area. 10 is the West Coast region, the North area, and the San Francisco, Northern California area.
the she messed up the two numbers really quick. It's 5 was the South Central region, 6 was the Deep South region. So she had forgotten to mention the number 6. I know people are going to call it out. They always do. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, back to May.
The King Alfred Plan says there will be no attempt made to seal off the Canadian-Mexican border. Evidently, the Canadian and Mexican government works with our CIA enough that when we go into the operation, we'll have their cooperation. We won't seal it because they won't be able to go north or south. The combined memo set out from the National Security Council says Department of Justice, FBI, and CIA. This is a combined memo for them. It said there are 12 major minority organizations and all are familiar to the 22 million. In other words, there are 12 groups in 1969 that were active, and all the blacks knew they were. Dossiers have been compiled on the leaders of these organizations, and they can be studied in Washington. The material contained many of the dossiers, and we have the names of those who are a threat, and we will reveal the material. The leaders who do not have such usable material in their dossiers have been approached to take government posts. It says the material contained in the dossiers of the leaders and our threat to reveal that material has held in check the activities of the leaders. That means that people like Martin Luther King can be blackmailed and put with women and tape record of their sexual accomplishments or expertise or whatever it is they were doing. And I'm sure that this is one of the things that has blackmailed many of the black leaders, is fixing them up with women on their political jaunts. And this was part of the plan. It said in the dossiers, we will threaten to reveal material, and that threat, because of their activities, has held many of them in check. But those people, those leaders that don't have usable material to blackmail them sexually or otherwise in their dossiers, we've approached them to take government posts. This is such as Andy Young, I suppose, and his ilk, mostly as ambassadors and primarily in African countries. The promise of these positions also has materially contributed to a temporary slowdown of minority activity. I think of Stokely Carmichael and many of the black leaders, or Eldridge Cleaver, and so many of them have been neutralized. You could do a list of neutralized black leaders. But the plan was either to keep in the dossier material that silences or give them government posts to slow them down. We do not expect these slowdowns to be of a long duration, however, because there are always new and dissonant elements which appear to join the organization with the potential power to replace those leaders that have either been sent out in the field to be representing us or to be blackmailed. All organizations and their leaders have to be under constant 24-hour surveillance. You see people like Fred Hampton in Chicago, the Black Panthers, or many of these leaders that could not be blackmailed or sent as ambassadors are then murdered by the FBI just in cold blood. Now, the organizations listed in 1969 were 12 of them when the King Alfred Plan was written. And when I read them to you, you can see that they're totally neutralized and taken over and non-effectual now, so the system is working. First was the Black Muslim, and of course the energy went out of it when Malcolm X was killed. Second was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, which is completely emasculated. The Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, which we never hear about. The Yahuwah movement, which is neutralized totally. The Group on Advanced Leadership, which we never hear about. The Freedom Now Party. The United Black Nationalists of America. The New Pan-American Movement. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference. There we have Reverend Abernathy and Reverend Jackson just going around, never exposing who killed Martin Luther King, totally neutralized or blackmailed or zombies, accepting the death of Martin Luther King's mother and his brother, the drowning right after he was killed, all kept quiet by these people for some reason or other, and I'm sure it's a combination of blackmail and threat. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and the Committee on Racial and Religious Progress. I went to a dinner party here for the NAACP, it was about 6 months ago on the Monterey Peninsula, and the black people there are totally neutralized. The guest speaker that evening was the Judge Goodwin from Fresno, who lets people out if they believe in Christ. He lets their sentences down. He's on Christ trip, and he's neutralized as a black leader. He's almost ridiculous. He now wants to run for governor under the party of God. The whole NAACP thing is a joke. It's a place to have dinner and get together, and all 12 of these organizations have been totally neutralized and fingered. The King Alfred Plan says, note, at the appropriate time, to be designated by the President of the United States when the leaders of these organizations are to be detained. Put them in only when it is clear that they cannot prevent our emergency. Working with local public officials during the first critical hours. Use them at the appropriate time, the leaders of these organizations. They are to be detained only when it is clear that they can't prevent it. If they think that they could help or work along or soothe the people, such as the Jews in the concentration camps, leave them out, but bring them in when they begin to catch on. All the other leaders that you can't use to slow down the hysteria before the vaporization takes place are to be detained at once. In other words, if they won't go along with you, gas them. Otherwise, use the leaders to calm the people. Compiled lists of minority leaders have already been put into the National Data Computer Center. It is necessary to use their minority leaders that will be designated by the President in the same manner in which minority members who are agents with the central and federal agencies. And we cannot, until there is no alternative, reveal the King Alfred Plan in all its aspects. That's identical to the Holocaust. If you read the books on Germany or saw the 4-part series at NBC, use them as much as you can. Use them like you use the blacks, FBI and CIA agents. Don't reveal all at once any more than those people did, the Jews who directed the other Jews into the concentration camps. Minority members of Congress will be unseated at once. Now, this came out in 1969, but remember that Richard Nixon's enemy list and every single member of black member of the Congress was on that list and fingered for some reason, not that they were active or even real spokesmen against Richard Nixon, but they were fingered as the enemy list, and goodness knows what other list. Every single member of minority of Congress will be unseated at once. This move is not without precedent in American history. The preliminary memo for the Department of Defense, it said this memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put up a street fight, a superior number of people, a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy in a few cities, for he is bound to be because of his heritage, and he knows that political asylum is not available anywhere else. The greatest concentration of minority will be the Deep South, the Eastern Seaboard, the Great Lakes, and the West Coast. So when they get anxious and get out on the streets, bring in the Army, the armed forces to halt them. We'll be outnumbered for a while. It says when the national population exceeds that of the minority by more than 10 times, we have to realistically take into account, 50% of the white population, for various reasons, will not engage to defend the black people when it comes. 2, the armed forces are spread around the world now. There will be a breakout here so that they need troops at home to handle the emergency. 3, the local law enforcement officials have to contain that emergency until help arrives, till the troops come home to have a superior force. The New York police, for example, has 25,000-man police force, and there's 1 million minority members in the city. So you have to handle 1 million minority with 25,000. Now that gets back to, again, the Zodiac taunting you, the police can't get me, ha, you need more police. Evel Younger and Ed Davis running for governor and increasing those police departments in California and New York City, increasing the police departments. They have to get enough police to handle the minority when they begin to round them up. The King Alfred Plan, which you can get, incidentally, in the library, in the book by John Williams. You can check it out from the library. It's called The Man Who Cried I Am. And on pages 375, 373, I'm reading from the King Alfred Plan in the book. But as I say, I do have a copy of the original that didn't come from the book, but you can get a copy in the book. And after John Williams wrote that book on Malcolm X and the King Alfred Plan, he became a non-entity. You never hear the name John Williams. He isn't on the talk shows. You don't see him kicking around and making a spectacle like Sammy Davis Jr. or Ben Vereen or some of these happy blacks who are making it in the system, or even Richard Pryor, who kicks ass in the system but is still very much a part of it. John Williams is never heard from, and probably because he exposed this plan. It goes on to say that local police will take over first for the minority and head off the emergency. There's a 10-point program before the vaporization begins. Countdown is this. 1, the local police take over the emergency. Count down to 8 hours. Give the local police 8 hours from the moment the president declares the national emergency and brings in the guards and the local police. The third step in the 7th hour is the local police and the county police join together. Not only the local, but the county comes in. The 4th step is that the state police and join the county and then the local forces, the armed forces that are available. The 5th step is the federal marshals join the state and the county and the local forces. The next step is the National Guards, who are federalized or held in readiness to come in on these riots. And the next step is then that the regular armed forces are alerted to take up their position. The next step is that all minority leaders, national and local, are detained all over the country. The next step is that the president addresses all minority and black on radio and television, and he gives them 1 hour to end the emergency. This is a 10-hour countdown of how it's to proceed. And then 10, all units under regional commands go into Emergency O. And Emergency O is, according to the committee report, it shows that during this 6-year period, as I read before, the production of the blacks created 9 million objects, 1,500,000 a year. That was back a few years ago. The production couldn't be disposed of, which is a bottleneck, and this has been going on for 20 years, that they've been increasing in numbers. Therefore, we suggest, because of this emergency, that vaporization techniques be employed to overcome the production problem inherent in the King Alfred Plan by the Secretary of Defense. And John Williams wrote, yes, those leaders clearly left themselves vulnerable for the hunters who for a generation or more sought communists with such a vehemence that they skillfully obscured the growth and the power of fascism. The black skins had stirred the fascists, and while these men were hunting the communists, the plan for the fascist takeover was happening. Do you believe the King Alfred Plan is real? Do you believe it's fiction?
And May thought it was real. I know she did, and that's why she dedicated an entire section of her broadcast that evening to discussing the King Alfred Plan. And ladies and gentlemen, it just goes to show you, look, it matches up with the 10 FEMA regions. They want to create the chaos to bring about their already predetermined, quote-unquote, order.
Right.
And they will foment whatever type of division they possibly can to do so.
Yep.
They don't care about you.
Let's not forget America 2050, and that whole thing in the mega regions. It all plays in together.
Everybody needs to step back. I know this is a horrific situation that happened in South Carolina. Step back and let's mourn, and let's not act on emotion in any way, shape, or form. And for the love of everyone that passed away, no violence. Stay tuned. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment. So you heard May Brussel discussing the King Alfred Plan last segment. And I'm not saying for sure that it is 100% real, but you can see that even if it's not the King Alfred Plan itself, which I think it could possibly be real, but even if it wasn't, you can see it could have been something that the author found that was real and was able to construct it off of there. Either way, it has eerily similar guidelines in it that go along with a lot of the eugenicist ideas, their beliefs, the things that they had to get done, the way that they even broke down the martial law area and end of it with the local police and the National Guard. Oh, we see that today. How about the 10 regions? matching up with the 10 FEMA regions almost. It's very eerily similar. So I think there's a lot more truth to it than just being a fictional story or part of a fictional story. Go check out Mae Brussel, maybrussel.com. That's where you can get her archives. I don't know how much it is. I think it's like $40 or $50 or something like that. It's not expensive. You can get 25 years of Mae's archives. Ladies and gentlemen, she broadcast until 1988 when she died. Mae was like one of the original truth tellers. She was actually one of the people that they came up with the term conspiracy theorist to attack after the JFK assassination. People like her, Penn Jones Jr., and others.
She was like Coast to Coast AM before it was Coast to Coast AM.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had death threats, so for a while, instead of doing radio, she did it on audio tapes, like cassette tapes. The lady's a fountain of information. Like, it's amazing when you listen to her broadcast, especially, that was 1978. You heard her calling people out that you clearly know now, Joe, are part of this, agenda. They're controlled. There's no longer, after they killed Martin Luther King Jr., there's no longer any real leaders like that anymore in the black community. And then it was steered however they wanted it to be steered.
Well, they had to kill him.
Well, interestingly enough, by the way, Jesse Jackson was the last person he was talking to when he got shot.
Yeah.
And he smeared.
He's just running screen.
Well, he smeared Martin's blood on him too. He's known for that.
Isn't that like his meal ticket for the rest of his life?
Yeah, pretty much. It's disgusting. And there were, by the way, I know I'm going to sidetrack here for a second. If you look up the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., I've done plenty of shows on this. The civil trial? I believe it was in the late 90s, early 2000 area. And the outcome of the civil trial was that the federal government was responsible for his murder, including Army intelligence, special ops, the FBI, and the CIA. Did you know that?
Nope.
Did you know that it was his family that partook in this trial? And that James Earl Ray, the guy that supposedly killed him, Martin Luther King Jr.'s family attended his funeral and said that they didn't believe he killed their father. Did you know that?
No way.
Yeah. This is all true.
I know it is all true,
but you can go look it up.
That's the thing, is it sounds like it because that's not the narrative they want to push. So it sounds like it is, but it's really not. It's reality. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. So look, the point of bringing all this up is this horrible event is going to be used to push further anger and violence. And that's why I said going to break, let's not be violent. That would be disrespectful to these people's memories. They were in a church praying. You can't get more peaceful than that, And here they're just praying, being, with each other, bonding, whatever. That's their thing. I'm not promoting religion one way or another or bashing it, but that's they were doing nothing but a peaceful sit down, get together. Right. Okay, I don't think acting out in violence in reaction to what happened to them is appropriate, because that's what the powers that shouldn't be want. And I don't know any of those people, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want that to be the reaction.
But just, understand though that provocateurs are probably already on the way, if not already there. And you're going to have the press there like crazy, and they're going to amp it up. And every single one of these events are going to be used to advance that agenda. And we just can't allow that to happen. We have to be louder than they are. Well, that's really what it boils down to. The mainstream media is loud, don't get me wrong, but so are we. And we outnumber them.
But that's why it's important to have these conversations. It's uncomfortable. They've muddied the waters to the point that people don't want to even talk about this, Joe. Because people are afraid of offending somebody or pissing somebody off, and now you have to be politically correct. And it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. We should be able to have open conversations about this and just squash all this stupid crap. This is holding us back, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know what you're all capable of? I do. I know Joe does. I know.
Oh, hell yeah.
Kev and, all the other people that we know and that are awake and aware. They all understand what humanity is capable of. You guys just need to believe in yourselves. We need to stop behaving in this base level thinking. But you see how they get us back into beast mode, into base modality, 666?
Yep.
They bring us in via emotion. They drag us in thinking on the lowest of simple of term. Oh, friggin' white people, oh, friggin' black people, blah, blah, blah. And they want us to fight. I look, we're all human. And as I've said before, if you were in a car accident and you needed like a heart to survive, and you're a white guy, and the only heart available happens to be from someone who passed away but was an organ donor, and a guy was a black guy, and you don't want his heart, you say, I don't want that heart. It was for a black guy, or it was from a black guy. You say, well, then, maybe honestly, you don't deserve that heart. And someone else who's more loving and whatever, they deserve it. And then you can just, go the way of the dodo.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yep.
And it's unfortunate that person might think like that, but that's just, honestly, that's just a programmed behavior. It's like Pavlov's dogs.
It is.
It's
become
the same simple programmed behavior. And I know that sounds very simplistic, Joe, but it's the truth. Racism is taught.
It is. It's a learned behavior. And, not to mention the fact that you've had a dumbing down process here now for a number of years. You've had the communist takeover. Basically, when you look at, the Red Scare of the 1950s and McCarthyism. Yeah, McCarthy actually was not that far off the mark when you look at it. He was vilified, and the whole blacklist thing, that was a bad thing. But there was certainly an agenda afoot. The Reese Commission showed that right at the time of McCarthy. He didn't just imagine this stuff. So what do? They pull back a little bit, and then they sneak it right under the rug. Especially when right after this big Red Scare, the Red Scare, everybody's a commie. Then all of a sudden, boom, Civil Rights Act gets passed, and you've got all the civil rights things going on. And what happens? It's just one thing after another, and it's bombard. Program. On the other end, they're dehumanizing and demoralizing the society. Now everybody's addicted to cheap Chinese crap. Got to have it. Got to sate all those desires. Humanity's a mess right now. Absolute mess.
By the way, speaking of the shootings, 1991, Behold the Pale Horse, Chapter 12, Under the Secret Government, under that chapter. Behold the Pale Horse, ladies and gentlemen. Go buy the book. The late William Cooper. This is from the book. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion, the CIA... I can't see half the writing.
Hi, I'm getting old. Hi.
No, I can't. The page is curved. It's just an image of it, but you can only see half.
I can definitely see in half.
I was trying to read it. I was trying to read the word. The CIA fomented in these people basically the desire. I'll cut it down. I'm just reading it here as I'm paraphrasing to make it easier because it's all, jacked up in this image I'm looking at. But the CIA fomented the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards. Bill actually mentions in the book schoolyards.
Yeah, specifically. Yeah.
Okay, Sandy Hook, anyone?
Oops.
Any of these other...
Gun-free zone. Mm. Gun-free zone.
Mm-hmm. And thus inflame the anti-gun lobby.
Yeah.
Now, the anti-gun lobby is automatically inflamed over this. I'm not saying that this is the same weird scenario controlled. Look, if it comes out that, some of these players that you see routinely connected to like mind control programs and stuff like that, if you see them start to appear at this kid's jail cell and stuff, okay, kind of weird. But for right now, I think the kid's probably just some very mentally ill, racist individual. And as the facts come out over the course of the next couple of days, that could change. But right. I bring this up because even if they're not fomenting it like Cooper talked about and predicted, again, Behold the Pale Horse, 1991, Chapter 12, The Secret Government, that's where that little ditty's from, and you'll actually be able to see the page flat and read the full thing. You won't have to hear me paraphrase it. But anyway, go do the research and research that stuff. And yes, MK Ultra and mind control experiments are real. But I bring that up because even if that's not the case with this, even if this kid is just some off the wall, batshit insane, racist programmed idiot and did this heinous act, and this isn't, I mean, there are contrived events, and then there are times that things are just taken advantage of. I think more so right now, this is just being taken advantage of. They're gonna hop on it and use the emotion from it because there's a lot of emotion, rightfully so, and they're going to use that to push their agenda, which is actually abhorrent if you think about it.
Oh yeah, sure it is, dude. And I'm glad you brought up Bill Cooper, because that's if you haven't read that book, you got to read the book. I'm going to take you back, because you know how I like history, man. And since you read to me a story, I'm going to read you a story. And it comes from, circa 1928 by our good old friend Eddie Bernays in his book Propaganda. This is how he starts it out, and it's titled Organizing Chaos. But he says the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we've never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. Our invisible governors are, in many cases, unaware of the identity of their fellow members in the inner cabinet. They govern us by their qualities of natural leadership, their ability to supply needed ideas, and by their key positions in the social structure. Whatever attitude one chooses to take towards this condition, it remains a fact that in almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by a relatively small number of persons, a trifling fraction of our, at that time, 120 million, who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It's they who pull the wires which control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world. That's how it starts out. The whole book is like that. That was 1928, almost 100 years ago.
And like I said before, they know how to manipulate people. So this kid, you have direct mind control where they're actually going to that individual and doing it. And like I said, if you see like Ewing Cameron and other people start to show up at this kid's bedside, like you did at the Aurora, Colorado shooting, Lynn, you have to go, weird. If there's... one of the reasons I don't think this is a false flag is the kid used a .45. He just had a handgun. You would think that if they wanted to ban, if they were going to, push their agenda, the kid would have had an AR-15 with multiple magazines. And you haven't heard that meme. You haven't heard it because he had a standard .45 caliber pistol. So now the meme is, well, it's too easy to get access to guns. But the kid, no gun control laws would have stopped this kid from getting access to it. His father bought him the gun. In all actuality, I think some fault lies with the father because he knew that they had an understanding that this kid apparently had some sort of... He
didn't go batshit crazy overnight, dude.
Yes, he didn't just like one day he was fine and like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, and the next day he's the monster that he is. No, they already knew. So why would you give somebody like that the .45? Now, I would agree if they maybe looked at holding the father somewhat accountable too. I don't have a problem with that. Again, case by case basis, but attacking guns doesn't solve the problem. How about teaching people violence isn't the answer? Oh, that's right, because coming from the United States federal government, violence isn't the answer being a lesson being taught would be so hypocritical that nobody would be able to swallow it, okay? Because people would be like, really? Violence isn't the answer? Don't we invade everybody and send cruise missiles and bomb everyone? Isn't that our answer to everything? Invade? Send in the Marines?
Been pretty effective.
Yeah, but hypocritical.
Very hypocritical.
So, look, we need to stop the hatred ourselves.
Yeah.
It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen.
It's as easy as that. Really, it comes down to it. Now, I know it's not easy per se, but it is. It's really a self-control thing.
It's a change of perception, Joe. I keep saying this.
Yeah, just exercise a little self-control.
Just like just like if soldiers wouldn't fight, there wouldn't be any wars. If we wouldn't fight each other, there wouldn't be this division amongst each other. If we didn't allow ourselves to be put into that position, and we allow ourselves because we acquiesce by buying into all of this pop culture stuff, we give up our free thought. Now, I know we're heavily manipulated to do so, but still, at the end of the day, it's us doing it, because if they can't control us unless we let them. That's the key of all of this. We have the ultimate control of it, the ultimate power. We have to let them do this. Why do you think they kept jamming the TPP down our throats? Because we kept telling them no, and then they kept ushering to do. No, we need to do it. We need to do it.
Pushback.
Right, and they have to distract you, and they have to do everything else, because they have an agenda. Because they have to keep you in a state of beast mode. Right.
and let's be honest. If this psychopath didn't go and blow away 9 people, they would have focused on some other story in the United States and hyped it up just as much to provide the distraction while this agenda is being executed with the TPP and everything else.
Dude, they were focusing on this girl with the NAACP crap that identifies herself as she's a white girl that says she's black and she lied and all this. And they made a big deal.
And that was painful for them. It had to have been.
But then after that, it went from there to now she's, now I'm bisexual and I'm this and I'm that. And they just kept focusing and giving them.
Now it's bi, trans, bi, trans. I mean, they push that acceptance now.
Yeah, but I don't really care what anybody.
No, who cares? But I'm just saying, you can see the narrative being played out. You know what I mean?
It's not even that. It's just they distract people.
But what does that do? What does that do though? It enrages the people that are not, that are judgmental of those that make those
decisions. It also serves as a division tactic.
A division tactic, yeah.
Because now it pits people that aren't open.
Right, so you have like your Christian right?
Yes.
That are just going to be enraged by this.
Yes, you're correct.
It's just another, right, another division.
But they know how to do that, Joe. They do it on purpose.
Oh, and they do it so well.
If we'd all just respect one another and just love each other as equals and start from that base, all of this would go away.
Yeah, and we have to raise our mentality from the level of fish, because all they're doing is throwing chum in the water. That's it. Okay, so just don't go for it. It's that simple. When you go to the store, right? You got black people around you, got yellow people, brown people. Guess what? Are you going around having a riot with them, having an argument, all that? No, you're not. You're going about your everyday life. Everybody just wants to be left alone, really, at the end of the day. So leave each other alone. Love your neighbor. Mutual respect.
Damn. When people go, well, then I don't want it thrown in my face. But see, that's where the mutual respect thing would come in. Again, right. That they would respect you, you would respect them. If everybody just looked at each other, just because we have certain differences, our political beliefs, which political beliefs are bullshit. Okay, let's narrow everything down. Okay, we're just this is what we're woodshed. We're gonna woodshed this right now. Okay,
this is a hyper woodshed event.
Yes, because we have like 7 minutes left. Okay, so political beliefs, really, that separates us? Bullshit. It means nothing. Bullshit. Okay, sexual preference. Well, that's people's sexual preferences, as far as I'm concerned, and it's their own business, and people are born that way. Just we have to accept one another, okay? And
that whole argument's just bullshit.
Yeah, again, bullshit. I don't care. I don't care if you're whatever you want to identify yourself as sexually, and that's what you're into. High five, kudos to you, because sex is awesome no matter what you're into. Let's all just, because we're human. So
and really
stop it.
Ask yourself this one. Ask whoever has a problem with you this one simple question. Who the hell gave you the authority, or how the hell do you know what's best for me? I don't know what's best for you. How do you know what's best for me? How freaking arrogant can you possibly be?
Right, you're not on that person's journey.
There isn't one perfect freaking human being on this damn planet. Everybody's a hypocrite if you're judgmental. It's the way it is.
And look, I've through my own journey, I've had to learn to not be judgmental about things. And it's
hard.
It's a learning process. Every day I still go through it, that's why I say I'm not better than any of you. We're all equal. None of you are better than me. I'm not better than any of you. Neither is Joe. Look, we're
all human beings.
Yeah, I'm not up here I'm not standing up here trying to lead you and you follow me.
It's
No,
pontificating with Popeye.
just stand next to me, shoulder to shoulder. That's how we do it here at TFR. That's like Joe and I we're close. I mean, Joe's my brother, but like he doesn't try to like Popeye. You'll follow me, and I don't do the same thing to him. I don't go, Joe, follow me. We respect each other as two complete individuals. We have two drastically different approaches to things.
Sure.
It comes that not
that drastic.
Yeah, not that drastic.
It's definitely Hulk smash.
It's a little different in certain areas. Similar in many as well. But we respect each other's differences, and that's one of the reasons Joe and I operate so well together as a team when we do things together, because we have that mutual respect for one another. Okay. And I don't judge Joe for whatever he wants to do with his life. It's Joe's journey. He doesn't judge me. Okay, which is actually very refreshing. Okay, because him and we often talk off air all the time. So there is no judgment of one another. You can just sit and be honest with each other. If more people did that, if more people were just honest with one another and respectful, and just dealt with each other in the love frequency instead of the fear frequency, things would be better. But that's why they want you to be afraid of your neighbor. They need you to live in that frequency so you're not thinking like this.
That's right, man. Yeshua said two things, and it basically lays it all out with two very simple rules. Do unto others as they would do unto you. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and love your neighbor. Two very simple rules. The whole thing would come crashing down tomorrow. Everything. There'd be unicorns. There would be rainbows. We'd be singing Kumbaya, and we wouldn't need gun control.
We don't need any of this. This is just
you don't need gun control?
No, we don't need any of this. It's what I call the perception deception. This is we have to be locked into this box. First of all, did
you really come up with that?
Yes, and if we were, that's my own little ditty. And if we would just treat each other better, okay. If our perception shifted just by 3 feet, if you could see the world a little bit differently, it's amazing. It's just amazing when you move your view 3 feet to the left or to the right, whatever analogy you want to use. Okay, you get my drift. Because they've got you deceived right now. They've got you thinking things work one way, and then they use emotion and everything else to amp people up and control people and scare the living crap out of them. Because that's how they control you at a very base, simple level, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how many times I can repeat myself. Do not live in fear. And again, don't go do anything stupid and riot over this, because I don't think, again, that anybody that was praying in a church whose lives were taken unnecessarily in an act of violence, I don't think that engaging in more violence honors them in any way, shape, or form. Everybody just needs to sit back. We need to mourn these people, and we need to maybe not blame guns. Maybe look at how we value each other and human lives more. Maybe reflect on that a little bit. Instead of, it's guns or politics or this. How about everybody just stop? How about we realize that this arguing back and forth just keeps fueling this?
Yeah.
We need to knock it off, man. And they're not going to do it in Washington. We need to lead that from the grassroots, from the ground up. That's the message we need to put out. We need to look at this differently. It's not about guns. It's about how we treat one another, how we view one another, our perception of one another. Again, the perception deception. Anyway, we only got about a minute and 20 before.
I'm still writing down deception Okay, I got it. Yeah. Thanks, man. I'll make sure it copyright Popeye 2015.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Joe's my attorney. Anyway, so, ladies and gentlemen, seriously, look to yourselves. Think about this. Just everybody sit back. Don't get in fights on Facebook over this. We need to, because that's part of this narrative that the powers that shouldn't be want. That's part of the chess game, going back and forth. We need to step out of that. And we need to step back. It's like I always say, looking at a Rembrandt painting, the paintings are so huge. You can look at it close to understand the minutia and the detail of it, but if you step back like 30 feet, you can see the bigger picture in its entirety. That's what we need to do. Step back, and we need to change our perception a little bit. Anyway, we are out of time. Make sure if you want to check all my audio archives out, go over to PopeyeRadio.com. That's PopeyeRadio.com. Check out maybrussel.com. As always, thank you, Joe. Check out the Freedom Link Radio Monday and Wednesday in this very time slot.
Yes.
And what is it, freedomlink.net, Joe?
Info at thefreedomlink.net. Email thefreedomlink.net website.
There you go. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The solutions to our problems are an inside job. I love you all. Go be the superheroes I know you all are.